And here we are. We are getting engines. Who could ask for anything more? Howdy, friends. It's your old pal Shred, welcoming you back to another episode of Frogger World. Oh, baby! 0.15 is here. We got things flashing all over the base. Oh, mama! I got a big show set up for you, so somebody roll the film! Alrighty, so we're up here at our power plant, and as you can see, things have changed a little bit, and no electricity is going. And one of the big changes that happened in 0.15 is we got a different boiler. I'm just going to lay it down right here. And where in 0.14 the boilers were one by one, so they took up a space of just one tile. Well, these new boilers take up 3 by 2, so they're 3 across and 2 down. And so if you have a map that you're bringing over from 0.14 to 0.15 and you jump into it, you're going to see all your boilers are still there, but they're all smushed together and they're not working. And as we saw in the last Friday facts, the devs came out and they said that the ratio is perfectly 1 boiler to 2 steam engines. So we're going to have to work on this and get something that looks like that. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to tear all this down, and I'm actually going to fill in all this area with landfill so we get a nice straight line right here. I'll be back in just a second. All right, so I got everything cleared out, and I got a nice straight line to build our new power generation. So I'm going to do, and there's some important things that kind of behind the scene changes that took place that are important to take into account. Now, the first is that our offshore pumps can now pump 1,200 units of water per second, which is a ginormous increase. I forget what it was before, but it was like 60 or 90 units per second, something like that, to 1,200. So these things pump out a lot of water. So we're going to start by laying down our boilers. And let's just go ahead. We'll lay down a few and plop in some of our steam engines. And my plan is I'm going to bring the coal right down here and then use the burner inserters to feed it in like that. So let me go ahead and get coal hooked up. So you remember in the old way we would set up power poles in between these. Since I have the medium power poles, I'm just going to put one right there and right there, and then kind of connect it over here for now. And so as I expand, I'll just move this power pole. If you don't have the medium power poles, what you're going to have to do is probably put a space in between your boilers, something like this. And then if you have the small wooden power poles, power them like that, or perhaps like that. So I'm just going to put and run my power out so we can get some lights in here. So at least this way we can kind of see what we're doing. Now, one thing to take into consideration here is if you hover, just like we hovered over the offshore pump, if you hover over the steam engine, you can see the fluid consumption is 30 out of 30 per second. So what this is telling us is that each steam engine is consuming 30 units of fluid per second. So if we know we're pumping in 1,200 units per second, and we're consuming 30 per second per steam engine, that's about 40 steam engines that we can potentially support with this one offshore pump. And since there's 2 steam engines per boiler, we can push onto here 20 additional, or 20 boilers can be connected to one pump. And so another thing to keep in mind is that these steam engines in 0.15, if we hover over it, can produce 900 kilowatts of power, where in 0.14 they were producing something like 510. It's not quite double, but it's a good jump in power. And if you remember, in our old build, we had something like 20 steam engines. Well, here I have 6. Yeah, our power's a little low, but I could probably get away with 10. So anyway, let's go ahead and add a few more. All right, so I added a few more steam engines. I'm going to put in my power pole so all the steam engines are connected. And we can see that they're not all running at full blast. We've satisfied our electricity demands with 10 steam engines, whereas before we had 20. Now, the whole factory isn't running that hard, but there's a big difference, something to consider. So one more thing to consider is, and I've tried to do some experimenting with this, and I ran into problems that if I put pipes in between the pump, which is offshore pump, which is producing 1,200 units of water per second, your pipes just don't have that much throughput. There's a max theoretical, it's 300 units per second or something. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not 1,200 units per second, unless something's changed with 0.15. And in my testing, I've shown that, once you get to about 10 boilers, you start losing some water flow and things start falling off a little bit. So I would probably, you're going to have a pretty good sized factory by the time you get to 10 boilers. You should have medium sized power poles, and those can fit on both sides. And so even in my big factory, for my emergency power, I'm setting it up like this. I'm going right from the offshore pump right into the first boiler and just stringing them along like that. The bad part about it, it's a big chunk. First of all, there's no way to run through it. You can run around this side, but as this extends down this way, you put 20 boilers, it's going to extend. This is only 5. 20 boilers is probably going to extend all the way down here somewhere. You're not going to be able to run through there, but it is a lot more compact. I think you do get a lot more bang for your buck. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. Actually, let's go ahead, add a few more. Let's get up to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll double this, and just so that'll give us enough power to push our factory for the near future. All right, so there we go. We got 10 boilers. We have 20 steam engines, which is the exact number of steam engines we had in 0.14 for our base. And we're not doing any science or anything. And that's so just our factory kind of idling by. It's supplying about a third, we got about 2/3 extra capacity. So that's great. Now, one thing also to consider, these guys use a lot of coal. And I noticed in my big factory, if you push this out to 20 and these are running full blast, a yellow belt won't keep up, especially if you put, in my big factory, I doubled up. So I put this, I got more on the other side going the other way, so it's feeding off both sides of the belt. A yellow belt couldn't do it. And if you use a red belt or a blue belt, these burner inserters can't pick up off anything but a yellow belt. So that's something to keep in mind, is that perhaps different builds, different things as we get more experience with 0.15, Well, we'll come up with different builds and new experimental ways of doing this stuff. But for right now, this is a super easy, it's super quick to build. It's fairly cheap, and 10 steam engine or 20 steam engines, 10 boilers is going to get your factory pretty far down the line. All right, so now that we got power squared away, I'm going to jump around the base and see what other little things may have changed. We're over at our oil refining build, and one thing to notice is that if you hover over any of the pipes, they used to run from 0 to 10. So basically in 0.15, all your liquids have been multiplied by 10. So instead of, this would normally say 9 or 10, it says 99.9. And if we come over to our tanks, instead of 2.4K or 2.5, which was the max, the tanks now hold 25,000. So everything here, again, multiplied by 10. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go in and change. It doesn't hurt anything to change it or leave it the same, but I'm just going to put it to 24,000, say 950. So if our heavy oil is greater than 24,950, we start burning it off. So I'll go ahead and just save all this. Down at sulfur, the sulfur ratios haven't changed. They're still good. It says 30 water and 30 petroleum, but we were with 3 and 3. And you can see real quickly, hovering over it, we're still producing 2 sulfur every second. And we need 5 sulfur every second. So we still got the 2 to 5 ratio here. So that being said, batteries should be about the same. Keep that. Plastic now uses less petroleum, so you should be able to fit more chem plants onto your refining. Down to our red circuit build, I went ahead and disconnected all our resources. I may have to pick this whole thing up and shift it over to the left, but regardless of having to do that, the ratios have changed for this. So instead of taking 8 seconds to produce a red circuit, it only takes 6. So essentially, because we're producing red circuits faster, we need to produce copper cable faster. Well, or let me put it like this. Instead of producing copper cable faster, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the number of red circuit assembly machines. So instead of 8 red circuit assembly machines, it's now 6. So building your red circuits, 1 copper cable assembly machine, 6 red circuit machines. After last episode, I came in here in order to prep for blue science, and so what I did is I kind of shifted some things around in here, shift some stuff down. I had filter inserters set up to put into blue science. That was 0.14 way of doing it. And I was up here kind of cleaning up some of the belts. So if you're paying attention, you might notice things have changed a little bit there. All right, so let's go ahead and start getting our factory ready again for blue science. This time we need to work on some engine units. So let's go and get started. I'm going to leave a couple spaces here, and I'm going to start like this. Essentially, what's going to happen is we're going to work for 1 blue science per second. So we're going to have 12 assembly machines making blue science. So because of that, we're going to need 1 engine unit per second. Coming over, looking at our engine units, we see that 1 engine unit takes 10 seconds. So we're going to need 10 assembly machines in order to produce 1 engine unit per second. We also need steel plate, iron gear wheels, and 2 pipes. So I'm going to start this off. I'm going to directly do something like this, and we're going to make this gears, and we're going to make this pipe. What we're going to do, we're going to have this come out like this, squeeze out there, come in like this. We're going to lay down the assembly machines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lay down 5 more. There we go. So there are 10 assembly machines. Let me go ahead and get power in here so we can get light so we can see. Okay, power connected, ready to rock and roll. Put in the rest of our belts. So it's essentially going to look something like this. We will output down the center. That way we have a balanced belt because we're outputting on both sides. Go ahead, place down some inserters. Just going to use yellows here. Place down some fast ones here. So I think that'll do it for all our inserters. For the most part, everything's set up. All we need to do is go ahead and connect the resources. So right here, we're going to throw in our iron ore, or iron plate rather. Going to come around like this. All right, we got iron coming in. And we can see it's putting it on both sides, splits it off, and we're going to have a split lane of gears and pipes. Now the only other thing we need for this is steel plate. So let's run up and get that hooked up. We'll do something like this. This is once it comes in, it'll get split off. All right, now that steel is flowing in, we can see things start working perfectly. So just to hit ratios real quick, we needed 2 pipes a second and 1 iron gear wheel per second. Iron pipes, 1 assembly machine produces 2 per second, and we get 2 gear wheels per second. So we're good to go. And here we are. We are getting engines. Who could ask for anything more? Oh, baby shred. This face is coming along sweet. I've already liked this video 16 times. It's not even out yet. We got a lot more to do, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen. In the next episode, I gotta tackle assembly machine 1s. No, Mama, I pulled all my hair out trying to figure it out. And they said blue science was gonna be easier. Oh, I'd get 16 accounts and subscribe to my channel for each one. Oh, you don't want to miss next week's episode. No way! Waiting for the sun to come out. The sun will come out tomorrow. The hell